The origin of the word narcissism came from the ancient Greeks and Romans about someone that was too obsessed with himself, called Narcissus, whose main goal at first was to find someone to fall in love with, but that didn't work out so well for him because he became infatuated with his reflection in a lake instead. As a result of not being able to look away, this person drowned. Now this cute story or myth captures the basic idea, which is self-interest to the exclusion of all other things. Another definition for narcissism from a religious perspective that describes Satan as the genesis of all evil and the father of narcissism, which points us into believing that it is a devil incarnate with the optimal goal of finding pleasure in lying, abusing, manipulating, and using people in order to get the thing that they want. Which may sound exaggerated and ominous, but not as ominous as the truth. Throughout generations, psychologists studied many cases and reached various conclusions on how to classify narcissistic traits that most people have, but to varying degrees. To truly understand what's happening psychologically inside a narcissist's mind is extremely difficult, seeing that there's no individual that can catch or develop these traits aside from childhood trauma, which gives birth to a really bothersome question. Aren't they rather victims of child abuse in truth? There's two major kinds of narcissism. The most common type is grandiose narcissism, entitled by extroversion, authority, public praise, for say they constantly need to be admired, seeing that they portray themselves as treasures, even though they are extremely smart and attempt to cover their trails by showing themselves as noble or righteous, like major world leaders and politicians. There are many signs to smoke one out. Narcissists lack empathy and exploit others without guilt or shame, unwilling to see the world from the perspective of others because all they need to know about the universe is that they are in the center of it. They manipulate people to meet their ends, asserting their superiority by belittling others. They also perceive themselves as more attractive than they really are, in a perfect delusional manner. Nowadays more so than ever thanks to social media platforms that provide self-promotion. They use long-term techniques such as gaslighting, making those around them question insanity, in purpose of adopting the reality of the narcissist, thus rendering them easy for manipulation. The second kind is vulnerable narcissism. A vulnerable narcissist describes someone who is hypersensitive to rejection and extremely self-conscious. They tend to be insecure as well. They become angry or offended when not put on a pedestal. A person with this diagnosis is highly sensitive to criticism. To truly diagnose someone with narcissistic personality disorder requires a professional, knowing that narcissism is a spectrum and anyone can be in both extremes. In between is where most people reside, which is considered a healthy mindset. Seeing as psychologists' understanding of the subject is still in a stage of infancy, perhaps a more philosophical approach might provide insight. Paradoxically speaking, narcissism is often viewed in a negative light, as an overinflated sense of self-importance and entitlement. But it can also be understood as an essential element to the pursuit of self-exploration and growth. To fully understand narcissism, we must explore its place in philosophy and its implications for building relationships and finding the true meaning in life. But why should we bother to learn about narcissism in the first place? Well, majorly in its influence on our world today, since it has infected modern politicians who portray themselves as exemplars of virtue, yet engage in corruption and demonizing, and enact policies that destroys society. How do these individuals operate? Are they aware of their hypocrisy? Do they truly believe in the self-image they so desperately attempt to illustrate in view of the fact that they are more prone to evil? One more psychological aspect is that they lack any motivation to be good, yet they intensely desire to appear good, That's why they constantly lie and resort to self-deception throughout their whole lives. So what happens to someone who is anchored in a grandiose self-image of moral purity when they commit acts of evil? Well, they rationalize, silencing the conscious mind with self-deception, yet still believe they are just, which makes them more dangerous than psychopaths, who are better than a politician that destroys in the name of good. Desperate to appear morally righteous and refuses to consider the possibility that their mandates and policies are the foremost conductors of what is wrong with societies today. Here is where the duty of the individual lies. Carl Jung says, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots are in hell." To emphasize on that is to be more conscious of our dark side well enough to recognize it when facing narcissistic characters hiding under the mask of general well-being.